Our Arbor Grow is more of a soil therapy treatment where we pressure inject to loosen the soil below the surface. We pressure inject with a mixture of sea kelp, which is highly rich in growth hormones. It's organic. It's been used for centuries to help enrich soil.
Makes perfect sense.
It does.
We're starting to learn more ways to utilize sea kelp.
Yeah. Worm castings. I mean, when I was a kid, to go back to that, we'd go fishing. We'd go out in the backyard, stick a shovel in the ground, you'd pull up some worms. You don't see worms today in the urban soils. Where'd they go? So there are now worm farmers who have facilities where they actually take what are called worm castings, because worms perform a very important function as they bore through the soil, and the soil material passes through their body, which is essentially a tube.
Sort of aerating and providing nutrition.
That's right. They do that, and they process all kinds of material, and they make it very plant-friendly, very tree-friendly. So there's a guy in North Carolina, and he's got a worm farm. And, we collect his castings, and we mix it in with sea kelp. We also use humates, which that rich, black, almost organic soil from the top of forests. Okay, we take that, distill it down, mix it with our Arbor Grow mix, and inject that with the formula. At the same time, we add certain microorganisms, mycorrhizae, trichoderma, which is a beneficial bacteria. And I could talk a little bit more about it. I don't know if we need to, but you get the idea.
Sure.
Soil is a living, breathing, moving thing, and that's where the tree really needs to be able to sustain itself from what's going on in the soil.
You have operations in Atlanta and in Charlotte. How did that come about?
Well, it was interesting. After my Durham experience that we talked about, and I decided I was going to go into the tree business, I made a point of coming to Atlanta because I figured, well, there's a lot of people there and there's a lot of trees there. That would be a great place to start a business. So I came here with about $1,000 and just went about knocking on doors and promoting myself as a company that could help people with tree problems.
When was this?
This was in 1981, so we're approaching 30 years now. But it was a great time to come to Atlanta because there was a tremendous amount of development going on. And I immediately started getting phone calls from people who had bought a house, a brand new house, and they loved the trees. And they're looking out in their yard going, all my trees are dead. What happened? And I'd go out and see these poor people, that had paid more for the house on the street with trees. And now they got to pay more to cut them down, and they got to start off with these little trees. So I started really going around and trying to figure out, well, how can people develop differently so that the result is not having dead trees?
Root systems must have been destroyed in the construction process for one, right?
Well, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
You've got your utility lines, you've got the grading process, you've got changes in drainage, everything. The trees and then the trees people thought in that day that saving a tree meant don't cut it down. Well, that's not the case. You have to protect the roots. And then I really started to connect with the commercial development community and met some people that were doing a lot of development, Post Properties here in Atlanta. We did 45 projects with Post Properties where, it was part of their image and it was part of their brand to go ahead and help people have a pleasant and nice environment to live in.
So was John Williams committed to trying to build his projects in a way that preserved as many trees, and you helped him do that on his projects? It's
a really fantastic story. John was a visionary. I had a tremendous amount of respect for him. And, of course, he understood how important landscaping was to a successful commercial apartment project here in Atlanta.
Right.
And it wasn't just tulips. They were famous for tulips, but also he wanted to protect mature trees because it gave that project a feeling of a certain level of being complete.
Right. And he won numerous awards for which you deserve some of the credit for these beautifully landscaped settings.
Yeah. So, back in the early 80s, as I made my way around town looking for stuff to do, projects, ways to help people, I came across a couple of construction sites and, there's signs for Post Properties. So I went and saw Director of Operations Fred Hooks and said, how can I help you with your trees? He said, wow, because, we just had a site where we had a bunch of trees fail, a bunch of trees die, and that's not what John wants. So we put together a program where we would go out before any construction was done, before the final site plans were done. we'd move buildings, we'd reroute utility lines, we put up protective measures during construction, we controlled concrete washout, we controlled everything that would impact trees. And the outcome was sensational.
All the things I might add that should be in most cities' tree ordinances.
That's right.
You were actually executing on those things.
Yeah. And then there are other projects here. The first Ritz-Carlton in Buckhead, that project was, if you go down there today, you'll see there are brick pavers that come up to the entrance lobby.
That's right. They've got that grove of trees right there in the corner.
That's right. And you can feel how the grade kind of goes up. And there's a reason why all that happened. It's because we wanted to protect tree roots underneath that construction.
Makes perfect sense.
Yep.
The brick paver treatment has some flexibility, and it's permeable so that for drainage purposes, the trees could get that precious water. And actually, I might add, those trees have been there the whole time that project's been there. Those trees have stood the test of time.
It works. Planning and protection, taking some things into consideration, it works.
Okay, so how did you then add Charlotte to the formula? Because these are your two major markets, is that right?
That's right. Well, I think Charlotte's a terrific city, and they love trees up there. So, and my mom lives there. I'll tell you that.
Okay.
So, my 87-year-old mother.
That probably has a lot to do with it. Because this is a program that profiles the nature of businesses, so to speak. The nature of this business is that you visited your mom, and it was a place that you were going regularly, and it was a city not unlike Atlanta that, like a lot of southern cities, had an appreciation for the natural horticulture and the economics to, it takes a certain amount of economics to support a tree preservation strategy, we'll say. So then you started operations in Charlotte, and when was that?
That was in 2004, March of 2004. So we're in our 6th year right now, just going into 7.
Almost 23 years later from when you began Arbor Guard. Was it Arbor Guard in the beginning here in Atlanta?
Yes. Yeah.
How'd you come up with that name?
Well, I just started thinking about protecting trees, guarding trees. Didn't really want to call it Tree Guard. Arbor Guard, the R's kind of go together, and it had a little ring to it.
It does.
And, we trademarked it, which I'm thankful for. And it's been our name.
We're going to take a break here. We're with Spence Rosenfeld of Arbor Guard. When we come back, I want to talk about a couple of very exciting projects, the Canopy Walk at the Botanical Garden, and also some things like the study that you did for Serenbe, a very forward, leading-edge project down in the Chattahoochee Hill Country on the south side of Atlanta, and the fact that you've been a consistent pick with home reports as best pick, and a few things like that. We'll be back with Spence Rosenfeld right after this break. Welcome back to the Business Hour. We're here with Spence Rosenfeld of Arbor Guard. We've been talking about some of the services that Arbor Guard provides, and now I want to talk about some of the really neat projects. One very notable project that is really kind of a cool, sexy project is the Canopy Walk at the Atlanta Botanical Garden. And another thing that I don't want to forget is the work that you've done related to the Beltline here in Atlanta. But let's talk about the Canopy Walk. How did that project get conceived of in the early stages, and how did Arbor Guard get involved?
Sure. Well, of course, it started as a grand vision. The property at the Atlanta Botanical Gardens was divided by a road. And on the one side of the road was the older gardens, where people would come and see all that. And then on the other side of the road was the natural woodlands. And the idea was, well, if there was a way to connect the woodlands with the existing gardens, how great would that be? But the road went through the middle of the property. So there had to be a bridge. And then you have to get the bridge down to the grade level so that people can continue to walk around. And it turned into an elevated canopy walk that is just beautifully engineered. And they realized that, well, you can't have a canopy walk and have all the trees die. We better get an arborist. So my experience from construction and development and just having to be in the right place at the right time, they brought me on as the lead arborist for the project.
Cool.
Yeah.
How do you get up and down from the canopy walk?
Well, it's interesting because it starts